Hello, everyone. My name is Nariman. Welcome to our first episode of Cision's new series, Media Coffee. We will be interviewing journalists from leading media organizations in major markets around the world to answer some of our clients' biggest questions on how to best communicate with the media. The way media operates is different according to the country or the region. So our episodes will highlight these differences and provide you, our viewers, with tips to attract the attention of the media in markets or in the markets that you're targeting. I'm happy to be here with Agence France Europe Director, Christine Buhagiar. Before I pass the mic to you, Christine, to introduce yourself, I just wanted to tell our viewers and those who might not be familiar with Cision, that we are a global provider of earned media, software and services to public relations and marketing communications professionals. We help our clients identify key influencers, cross and distribute their strategic content, and also measure its impact. If you would like to know more about Cision or about our services, please feel free to visit our website, cision.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and across our other social media channels. Christine, welcome again. I'm so happy to have you here in our very first episode. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and work with AFP?
Hello, everybody. Well, I've been a journalist with AFP for a few decades now. I've been Europe Director for 5 years, and before then, with a dedicated team, we created and developed the video service AFP didn't have during the last century, and now AFP has a big video service. So I worked for 15 years developing this video service, first in French, then in English. And before then, I was chief editor in our London bureau, doing news basically. And before that, I'm working for the economic and political services, current affairs basically.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Christine. Again, I'm happy to have you here. We always get a lot of questions from our clients, just trying to understand how the media operates and how they can attract their attention and basically cooperate with the media. So I wanted to ask you in general, what is the media attitude in France about press releases?
I think they are quite unhappy right now because they receive too many and it's not properly targeted. So they receive a flow of emails, which they have a lot of difficulties really organizing. And this really is a problem for the journalists because they have the feeling that the communicating parties do not know how to send these emails. They don't send them to the right journalists and sometimes not in the right shape. So I would say there's quite a lot of unhappiness right now about the system as it is. And they also have a sensation that it hasn't changed for 20 years and that it's time to really do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And you said that you're receiving a lot of emails or a lot of press releases. Roughly how many press releases do you receive per day? And is there someone scanning these emails?
Yeah. I think I receive something like between 50 and 100 every day. And I'm not the one who receives the biggest flow. I mean, some people here receive more than 100 press releases a day. And when you think that at the most they will deal with one, you realize that one or two, you realize that there's a problem here. And they shouldn't be receiving all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. Then What is your view personally on press releases then? Do you prefer to have them? Do you read them? I know you receive a lot of emails or like press releases, as you said, but in general, would you like to receive press releases, or do you prefer to be contacted by companies in different ways?
I would prefer to decide for myself what I want to receive and what I don't want to receive. So for us, I think it's really important to have some active part in what we receive and how we read it. And I think that emails is good if it's organized. So it has to go through some kind of interfacing, which allows you to really select what you want. And being called over the phone, I think is not something we need. We need to call a contact number when the press release is not precise enough, or when we want to have more information or one insider information, then we call. We don't want to be called systematically. I think this is really old-fashioned way of doing things. We would like it to work differently, really. I mean, in the newsroom of the future, I don't see journalists receiving phone calls like they did 40 years ago. They must be able to choose who they want to call. And so it implies a change of habits for the journalists, and it implies a change of having habits for the communicating companies, parties, and in all this. So it's a little bit of a revolution, but I think we will get there in any case. So better sooner than later.
Yeah. So you mentioned one of the things that you don't like to have is basically companies calling you, but with press releases is companies' way to basically send out their messages or introduce new products. So in case what are the common mistakes that you see companies make while they're trying to push or like trying to spread or raise awareness about their services or products?
Yeah, I see. I mean, that's a very important question as well. I think that they must forget about marketing and they must start thinking news. What is new exactly in this news, and what is the lead basically? The lead is for us news agencies, it's the first paragraph of a story, and it really tells you what it's about. And in some press releases, you have to go until the 5th paragraph or the 6th paragraph to understand where the news is. And some journalists just don't have the time to do this because of the media crisis. The newsrooms are shrinking, and there are less journalists to do more work because they must feed their websites in addition to their traditional media. So it's a lot of work they have to do. If the news is in the 5th or 6th paragraph, they may just say, well, reading the beginning of your press release, well, this is not interesting. I already know about this. So I don't want to read that this company is the best in the world. I want to read what is the news today about it. So I think forget the marketing and think news. That would help us a lot.
Yeah. So aside from thinking about what's new, what else do you think that press release writers should think about while drafting or writing their press releases?
Yeah, context. So if we are speaking of figures, we need to know the figures relating to the same things a year ago or 2 years ago, etc., to have a good view of what the context is. So facts and figures, basically. So and these facts and figures will help us build a nice story. So we don't need sentences saying how nice this is or this is not. We need facts, figures, and the news. And on all this, we can build a good story. We do want extra if it's really a help to put everything into context. So maybe I didn't explain very well what I meant, but you can't just say this is the news and that's it. You have to explain also who is this company? What is it doing? What kind of sales it's having? How many people are working? What kind of people made this news doable? You know, I mean, all this we need, but these are facts and figures. They relate to the news itself. So for us, it makes sense. What we don't need is like, you know, this is so great. I mean, judgments about the quality of this or that. This we don't need. Or the kind of marketing approach we don't need either.
Absolutely, I understand. So what are apart from that, what are the absolute no when it comes to press releases, something that you don't want to see at all in a press release? And maybe you can give us like an example of a good press release that you've received.
Well, I mean, right now I don't write stories, so I can't give you, like, name somebody, but I've done a lot of them for years. So in fact, what makes a good press release is the news first, on the first paragraph, the context after, with a good bunch of facts and figures to help us write the story, a contact number, which is working, names of people we can contact, so we don't lose time, you know, searching for everywhere for some contact name, and a visual material, because you have to think multimedia. And nowadays, it's very rare that something is just text or something is just video or just photo. I mean, it's extremely rare. So we are in a multimedia environment, a web internet environment, where you have to accompany your text with photo, and even better, video. So I mean, there are a few things which are not relevant in photos or videos, and then it will be for the journalists to find solutions, but most of them, they can be illustrated. And so we would really like to have more visual information in our press releases.
And in your opinion, what is the preferred length for a press release?
Well, it really depends on the news. If it's a financial news and a kind of yearly financial news about the results, it would be good to have quite a lot of details, and it can be at least one page, maybe 1.5 pages. If it's just a product news and there's not much to say about it, maybe a photo, video, and 4 paragraphs will make it. It really depends on the news. Of course, the shorter the better, but it's not always possible. So it has to be tailored according to the importance of the news and the population of journalists you are talking to. If you want to sell a new bag and you're sending this to all the women's magazines, you know that they're not going to do a page on this. They basically need the photo and the name of the product and a few lines for them to understand the context, and that's it. If it's financial results of a listed company, then of course you need much more. Or if it's an explanation after, let's say, a fine that they have received from an EU court or whatever, we need explanations on this. And so this could be longer.
Yeah, absolutely understand. That makes sense. And just on top of the previous questions that I asked you, what is the best time to send a press release, or the best time to send a press release?
Yeah, it depends again if it's hot news or cold. If it's hot news, whenever it comes out, as soon as possible, whatever day it is. If it's cold news, then send it in the morning, not on a Monday morning, not on a Friday morning, because a lot of journalists have lots of holidays because they don't have proper working hours. So they tend to have 8-10 weeks of holidays every year. So they take very often either Mondays or Fridays. So you should send it on a Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, or Thursday morning. Probably Tuesday and Wednesday are the best days for cold news. But for hot news, anytime. I mean, as soon as you're ready.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. I didn't know that, but something that this is a valuable information. Yeah, thank you. Very good tip.
You're welcome.
I wanted also to ask you, since you receive a lot of press releases and you don't have time to obviously view all of them, how do you get your news? Where do you source them from?
The news, I mean, how do I get informed, or you're speaking of the press releases?
So news in terms of like news to write your stories or articles.
So we have, of course, several sources to get our news. I mean, our news or our sources of information. Press releases is one, but we also have Twitter, we have Telegram, we have social networks, we have news agencies' feeds, television. So there's a whole variety now of sources for journalists. He has to listen to the radio, to watch the TV, to look at the social network. He has a tweet deck, and he has his press releases on his email. That's why it's absolutely crucial to find ways to organize this better for him and her, to allow them to organize themselves with the flow of press releases. Otherwise, we are getting to a point where we can't see them anymore. And so it's really key that we get to this organization of this flow. And there's another important matter nowadays, which is authentication. Because we have been confronted with several fake press releases, which led us to publish fake information, and we are responsible. The journalists are responsible for what they publish. And it's not the company which was faked, which is responsible, it's us. And so we are paying more and more attention to this authentication issue. And I think that the companies should help us, because there are now systems which allow you to authenticate your press release, and it should be more and more used.
That's actually interesting you said that, because one of the questions that we usually get from people is that how do journalists verify the accuracy of the press releases or the information that you're being provided?
Well, we try and verify because we know the source, because we call the source, because we look at the context, we check with the previous stories about the same company or institution. But sometimes, I mean, we've seen examples of fake press releases, which are so well done that even the biggest agencies have all fallen in the trap, because it's so well done. So now we see that the expertise of a journalist may be not enough, and that we really need to have a digital system which allows us to authenticate the press release. In some cases, I mean, for most of them, it's not necessary, but for some financial results in particular, it's becoming really an real necessity. For all sensitive information, it's becoming a necessity.
And how can PR professionals and communication professionals help you out with confirming the accuracy of this information? What do you expect from them to help you verify the information?
I expect them, I mean, it's very simple. I expect them to subscribe to system which allows them to stamp an authentication stamp on their press release, which is then, when it lands into the newsroom, checked again through the same authentication tool. So it does exist. There are several of these, and we need them. So it's up to the communicating company to subscribe to some sort of system which authenticates and which help organizing this communication. And it's up then to the journalists to use these tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then just on top of a question that I asked you earlier in terms of how can companies follow up after sending their news or press releases? I know you mentioned that journalists at the moment are very busy and you don't really prefer companies to call you. But how can they follow up in terms of, just to make sure that you receive an accurate information, maybe verify what is the best way that they can follow up with journalists after sending a press release?
Well, it's our digital world because there are systems again which allow, let's say, a PR officer to send emails or to send to a database, and then he can see on his screen what has been received, how many journalists received, how many journalists opened his email.
Mm-hmm.
So first he knows who has opened it, or she knows. So that's already a first information. And then in the ones who have opened it, then he can check with monitoring tools whether there's already a story or not. And if there's no story and it has been opened, then why not send an email or call the journalist? But at least we avoid several stages of calling the journalist for nothing. I mean, just, did you see this email? Yes, I've seen it. I've read it. So we can avoid at least this. And, most of the time you won't be answered. So because people are too busy to answer. So especially if it's about a press release, they are not very interested in. So again, I think we should use the tools which are available today in the digital world to do a lot of tasks which can be done without annoying anybody. And I think that the main issue is that we are still like we were 20 years ago. I don't see any change for me as a journalist between how it was 20 years ago and how it is now. And that can, sorry, but many things happen, many tools appeared, and they should be used to facilitate our life and the communicator's life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that, and it makes sense as well. Thank you very much. One last thing, do you have any last recommendations for PR professionals or whoever wants to communicate with the media in France particularly?
Quality and not quantity. Target instead of, what's the word in English? Carpet bombing. Yes, so quality instead of quantity, target instead of carpet bombing, streamline and think news instead of marketing, and think authentication. I think this is the new thing and it's going to get bigger and bigger in the next years.
Perfect. Christine, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you. And you definitely provided us with valuable insights that I personally, I think are very beneficial and helpful. So at the end of our video, I just want to thank our viewers for watching this video. And to remember, if you want to know more about Cision and our services as well, you can visit our website, cision.com. And you can also follow us on social media and LinkedIn profile as well to stay up to date with our news. And don't forget to follow AFP as well on Twitter.